Hello everyone, welcome to Vizag Ias Academy. In this video, I will be talking about the landslide, but my major focus is going to be on the landslide that we have recently seen in Wayanad. In the monsoon month, from all over India, we have this tragic news of the landslides. Be it Uttarakhand, be it Himachal, Siliguri or Guwahati. So we have so many news, and unfortunately, many people in this landslide, they lose their life. And in the last week, we have also seen a deadly landslide in Wayanad also. And you very well know, Wayanad is very susceptible to these sort of landslides. We have seen in the past also that why Wayanad is experiencing so many of the landslides. Wayanad is a district in Kerala, which is like northern part of Kerala. And it has a history of actually landslides. In 2024, just 2 years back, Wayanad has experienced a very deadly landslides. Actually, there were floods going on because of in the time of monsoon, there was a huge rainfall. As a result of that, Wayanad has seen so many landslides, and some of the landslides were so deadly, more than 300 plus people, they lost their precious life. A huge landslide at the height of 155 meter took place, and it was so devastating that slope actually slipped 4 to 5 to 7 kilometer down slope, and a huge village was completely submerged under the soil. It is so much deadly in the history of Kerala. Even during the time of 2018 floods, again, Kerala has experienced so many landslides, and we lost a life of more than 400 people. And some estimates saying it can be like more than 420 or 430 also. Last week also we have seen a landslide in Wayanad. Every year, one or two small or large landslide you will experience in Wayanad. Wayanad is very susceptible to these landslides. Now, naturally, question arises that why Wayanad is so susceptible? Why Wayanad is so susceptible? See, if we go by some facts, Geological Survey of India is saying that 12.6% of total India's land mass is actually susceptible to landslides. If we accept snow-covered peaks, basically, if you don't cover the snow-covered peaks of Himachal, Uttarakhand and all that, 12.6% of landmass of India is vulnerable to landslides. And this has been actually what happened a few years back in 2023. ISRO also has launched a landslide atlas, and in that atlas also, ISRO said the same thing. Even if you go by the record, out of 147 districts in India, Wayanad is the 13th most vulnerable district in India when it comes to landslide. Even in Kerala, Wayanad is the 5th largest most vulnerable district when it comes to landslide. So we have seen that Wayanad is actually very vulnerable to landslide, and unfortunately every year we lose some precious lives there. But my concern is that why Wayanad is so susceptible. So my focus is going to be on the reasons first. But before going into reason, let me give you a very brief introduction. What is actually a landslide? What is actually a landslide? So if we see the landslide, if like this is a rock which is here, or this is an area, if you see, so landslide simply means downward slope or downward movement of these rocks, downward movement of the soil, downward movement of the earth, downward movement of like any sort of mass, downward movement of any rock, debris, soil or earth under the influence of gravity. Under the influence of gravity along the slope is called landslide. So landslide simply means downward movement of any material, any mass material. It can be rock, it can be debris, it can be soil, it can be earth. Under the influence of gravity, when it tries to go down along the slope, that is called landslide. So please remember here, we have two forces. One force is the gravitational force, or you can say gravitational force is basically the driving force which is trying to. So let me tell you one more fact, that without gravity there is no landslide. Without gravity there is no mass movement. So slope also basically creates it. If there is a higher slope, if I say if this is one zone area, or if this is another area, so which will trigger more landslide? Obviously this one, because slope is very steep. Here slope is gentle, and as this slope is going gentler and gentler, the intensity and the frequency of landslide is less and less. So slope also matters, because with slope gravity also matters. The first factor is gravity, which is the driving force which is trying to pull this rock downward. Another force is which is basically on this rock, or you can say this is the resistive force. Resistive force. What do we mean by resistive force? It means, let's say, friction, or it's like cohesion. Cohesion. So what is happening? Gravity is trying to pull this rock and debris downward, but because of high friction and cohesion, this rock is not going downward. This should be a balance. But if friction is reduced, cohesion is reduced, or gravity is increased, in both the cases, if driving force becomes more than the resistive force, this whole material comes down and we call it a landslide. So you need to keep these two factors in mind. If gravity increases, how gravity can be increased? We'll talk about that also. Or friction is reduced. In both cases, there is this landslide. Now, what is happening in Kerala, or what is happening in Wayanad? We need to look into that. And you also need to understand that landslide is not only a man-made phenomena. Yes, anthropological factors are definitely there, but there are natural factors also. So if we talk about landslide and we see the natural factors, what can be the natural factors? In natural factor, you can say excessive rainfall. Excessive rainfall, when there is a condition like the cloud burst, there is a huge amount of precipitation which takes place within a very small period of time. That can be a trigger for the landslide. Or floods can also trigger landslides. There can be some volcanic eruption happening. It does not apply in the case of Wayanad, but yes, volcanic eruption can also happen. Earthquakes can also be there. They can also trigger the landslide, or some other sort of tectonic activities which might be happening there. These can be some of the factors, natural factors. But when it comes to anthropological factors or man-made factors, what can be the man-made factor? You can say deforestation. Deforestation. So if you are removing the vegetation, that can also trigger. Or you can say like quarrying. Quarrying is happening there, or mining is happening there. That can also trigger these. Or you can say developmental activities. Developmental activities means what? So if you are doing like mining there, you are doing, let's say, road construction is going on there, or tunnel building is also going on there, because these sort of activities also destabilizes the slope. They can create a lot of friction and everything, so they can also trigger this. And there can be so many other factors also when it comes to the human being. There can be some testing of some weapons or something like that. There can be a lot of factors in case of human factors as well. So now in case of Kerala, we will be looking into these two factors. Okay, natural factors and these man-made factors. So when it comes to natural factors, so first of all, we need to understand the geology of the Wayanad especially. Okay, so what is happening in Wayanad when it comes to geology of it? Or this is the outer soil, okay? And we know what is the soil there. We have laterite soil. Laterite soil is full of iron and it is full of aluminium. One characteristic of laterite soil is that laterite soil is a loose soil. It means it has a lot of pores. What do you mean by pore? Pore means this. Pore means, if this is the soil, let's say laterite soil, so these are the pores. Pores mean the gap between the soil particles. That can be said as the pore. So it is very pore, it has large pores and loose soil. Especially what happens when this soil absorbs water, when it gets hydrated, water particles can enter into between the pores. Yes, now these water particles are forcing the soil particles. So soil particles, the pressure of the soil particles actually increases. So they try to expand because in between now they have water vapor, water molecules earlier they did not have. So they will exert their force and it is swallowed. So volume will increase. Volume is increased. So that is why, that is one factor that these soil particles actually they become loose. Earlier they were tight, but when they absorb the water, they get loose. And when they get loose enough, they are lubricated. So now the cohesion force between the soil particles is reduced very much. So it cannot stick itself to the basically bottom rock. So they get lubricated and now they start moving. That is one factor that you need to understand. Another factor, if we are adding lot of water into this soil, so what will happen to the weight? Weight of the soil also increases because it is holding so much of water. Because of the weight, gravity increases. So downward pull due to the driving force also increases because of the weight. Now two things are happening here. Driving force is increased and cohesion force and friction force is reduced. That is why this whole basically part of it starts moving downward along the slope. This is what is happening in the Wayanad also. Because this rock or the base rock that we have, this base rock is very much crystalline. Like this is made of gneiss or metamorphic rock, very hard rock and metamorphic rock. Okay, crystalline rock basically. Because we very well know this is the peninsular India. This is the one of the oldest landmass in the world. So we find here these metamorphic rocks. So metamorphic rock at the bottom and base and laterite soil on the top of it. It basically is the perfect recipe for a landslide. Perfect strategy for a landslide. And one more thing that you know about Western Ghat is that the escarpment topography. Escarpment topography means that slope is very, very steep. Western Ghat. Slope is steep. Escarpment. You can call it escarpment. Now what happens? This is the monsoon time. Southwesterly monsoon wind. They are bringing lot of moisture here. When they hit the Western Ghat, they are forced to rise. And you know very well when the moisture laden wind rises, what happens? There would be condensation and there is going to be lot of rainfall. We know this already, right, from the geography classes. So there is going to be lot of rainfall. Now, these Western Ghat, it experiences lot of heavy rainfall within a small period of time. Just within a few hours, it can have 150 mm of rainfall. So much of heavy rainfall, like a cloud burst. Like a cloud burst. Now you can basically imagine this laterite soil, if it is receiving so much of heavy amount of water within 1 hour or half an hour, what should be the condition of it? It gets lubricated so fast, it cannot hold itself against the slope and it starts moving downward. So excessive amount of rainfall and its slope and the geological factor leads to this landslide that we experience in Kerala, and especially here we are talking about Wayanad. So this is one geographical factor that you need to understand for this landslide. Now, what about the man-made factors or anthropological factors? Man-made factors. That is also very important. Man-made factors. Man-made factors. Look, one very important factor to hold the soil is the natural vegetation, our forest. The roots of the trees actually hold the soil. Okay, they increase the cohesion and they increase the friction also. So even when there is a huge rainfall, they do not let that slope slide along the slope downward. They keep on holding it because they are increasing friction and they are increasing the cohesion also. Now what happened in Kerala? Large-scale deforestation take place. Large-scale deforestation take place. Now what happened in Kerala? Large-scale deforestation take place. Large-scale deforestation take place. Now what happened in Kerala? Large-scale deforestation take place. Large-scale deforestation take place. Now what happened in Kerala? Large-scale deforestation take place. deforestation, especially in the decades of 1970s and 80s, because there was too much focus on plantation. Too much focus on plantation, tea plantation, coffee plantation, or you can say spices and all that, cardamom, right? Rubber. You know very well rubber. In case of rubber, Kerala is the largest producer of rubber and coffee and cardamom. So what happened? In Kerala, on a very, very large scale, natural vegetation, natural forests were cleaned completely. They were replaced by the plantation. But if you see the natural trees has deep roots, right? They have deep roots. They have deep roots. But if you replace them with the plantation, then it does not have deep roots at all. They are stick only maybe few inches. That is one reason. And we removed the natural forest. Now what happened? One other factor related to this. We removed these trees in the 1980s. Okay? But their roots were still there. Their roots were still there. Somehow they were holding the soil. Now after 40, 50 years of deforestation, now their roots are also completely decomposed. Now what happened as a result of that? This soil become extremely loose, soft and loose, because there are no roots left now. That is why they are also more susceptible because of this, and there is high amount of rainfall. Another point that I would like to add is climate change also. Climate change also. Look, climate change can be very natural if you consider it in the like hundreds of years, but still I am basically including this in the man-made factors. What is happening as a result of this climate change? Look what is happening. What is happening? Arabian Sea is getting warmer. Okay? As a result of that, this is our Western Ghat. Okay? Arabian Sea is getting warmer. So there is more evaporation in the Arabian Sea, more water vapors, more condensation. So now what is happening as a result of the warming of Arabian Sea, Western Ghats are experiencing more rainfall. Even better word would be more intensive rainfall. What is the meaning of this intensive rainfall? Intensive rainfall means that total number of days receiving rainfall is less, but in those days rainfall is extremely heavy. So instead of having moderate rainfall over a longer period of time, now we have very high intensive rainfall in shorter period of time. That is one reason there are more, because of this intensity of rainfall, these Western Ghats are becoming very susceptible, and especially here we are talking about Wayanad, which experience frequent these of landslides. Okay, so that was one reason, deforestation planning. Another factors can be there as well. Let's say you can say, look, Kerala overall is very population dense area. So population density is very high. Okay. Now what happens, because population is so high, that landscape pattern or the land use pattern is changed over a period of time, because now you need to include more land as the agriculture land. That is what is the problem. So what is happening in Kerala, the slope of the mountains are cleared for the plantation, and the valley area is for the paddy cultivation. That is what is the problem there. Because of high population density, there is more demand for the food production, and there is high plantation also. So this natural landscape is completely changed. So land use pattern is completely changed. Apart from that, the unregulated construction activities is also going on there on every level. If you remember, few years back, Supreme Court has given this decision that 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer area of every protected area should be declared as ecological sensitive zone, and there should not be any construction allowed. The biggest opposition came from Kerala, because millions and millions of people are actually residing in 2-kilometer area of their protected areas. They should be naturally protected, but because population density is too much, so many villages are there, so that is another problem. In these highly susceptible mountainous slopes, people have basically decent settlements for so many years. So landscape pattern is completely changed here. Unregulated construction going on, developmental activities are going on at the state level and the national level also. And when I mean by development activities, let me give you this example. Last week, the landslide which happened there, it happened in the Meenakshi area, okay? And you might be surprising to know that 2024, where we experienced one of the deadliest landslide, Meenakshi area is just 4 kilometers away from it. So basically what we are doing, we are trying to construct a double tunnel system there through the beneath of the Western Ghat. It's a huge, it's a 2,000 crore plus project which is right now going on there. And this landslide happened in one of the tunnel also. So human activities or the developmental activities, it can be construction of the roads, construction of the tunnels and canals, that is also leading a lot of problem. And there is a lot of encroachment is also there, na? Encroachment. So on the river banks, there is a lot of encroachment, unregulated, unpermissible encroachments. Because Kerala is a tourist, and Kerala has one of the, basically receives one of the largest number of the tourists domestically and the globally also. So that hospitality industry, tourist industry is very much developed in Kerala. That is why you see in very eco-fragile zones on the banks of the rivers and whatever, you will see lot of encroachment, lot of hotels and everyday thing that is all going on there. And none of them is actually, only few of them is following the building codes and they have permission. And so this is highly unregulated and illegal also, if I would say that. These are some of the factors which is making the whole Kerala, especially Wayanad, very, very susceptible. Okay, we have some natural factors and we have some human-made factors also. Deforestation, plantation, developmental activities, and all these factors is making Wayanad very, very susceptible. Now you might be asking, sir, what should I do? Now we know the reasons, we know the problem. Do we have some solution? Look, if we know the problem, there is a solution. If we know the reason behind the problem, there can be a solution. Here also, if you talk about solution, first and foremost solution is always should be to identify. You need to identify where problem is lying. So we need to have these landslide susceptible mapping zone. Okay, so first of all, we need to map which areas are more vulnerable to the landslide. If we are able to do this, it means we can make them better. So we can maintain them better, or construction activities which are going on there, or we can not allow some sort of human activities there. So first of all, we need to identify those zones. That is first thing we should do to tackle any sort of disaster, management of any sort of disaster. Second thing that we can also do, always early warning system. Early warning system, especially during the time of monsoon, we should have such instruments, such sensors, which can sense, let's say, soil moisture. They can sensor soil moisture, and they can actually, there can be like a siren also. They can basically inform the authority as well, SMS or something like that. So early warning systems should be developed there. And there should be better laws, na? There should be better laws, implementation of the laws. I mean to say building codes and all that. And there should be strict implementation of them. If any contractor or any person is found violating these norms, that license should be cancelled, even that person should be jailed. Like in this case, if the contractor is found guilty of violating any rules of tunnel digging and whatever, that person should be in jail and it should be blacklisted also. And on the local level, we can train people in the villages, right? We can train them. There can be better awareness campaign and all that, and there can be better reporting if local village people are actually engaged in this sort of activity, because they are the ultimate victim of all these landslide thing. So that can also be there. And we can also collaborate with some international organization when it comes to the landslide reason. So yes, these are some of the solutions that we can have. We need to identify, and we need to have better laws, community participation there should be, and yeah, these are some. Or we can also, slope stabilization can be there. Slope stabilization. What do you mean by that? Slope stabilization, like there can be terracing also, no? There can be terracing so that the water flow can be reduced. That can be there. There can be this rock, basically kneeling we can do. We can also make the soil also more stable basically in a way. So we can have retaining walls also. So these type of measurements we can take in order to reduce this problem or solve this problem. And not only in Wayanad, but these are the solutions which can be applied all over India, and we should do that. But yes, that is all for this video. So we have discussed a little bit about landslides, reasons behind landslide, especially in Wayanad, and some of the solutions. And if you have some solutions in your mind, you can tell me in the comment section. If you have some feedback, you can tell me in the comment section. And that's all for the day. Keep learning. Thank you. Jai Hind.